share a letter that I received from a subscriber. The reason that I picked this letter in particular was because I thought it was really illustrative of, as victims of this kind of abuse, the ways that we can over-intellectualize things and sort of fix our memories so that we don't have to really address everything that we would have to address if we were just to admit to ourselves that we were actually abused. But the way that we will kind of excuse it and make it okay and all that, I kind of want to show you what can happen for those of us who were abused in this way. Can be an overachiever syndrome, can also be people pleaser syndrome, and a variety of other things. But in this case, I think she's leaning towards overachiever syndrome. Okay, so the letter starts out, "Hi evening, thank you for what you do. Your videos have been more help to me than you know. I'll try to make this quick as I appreciate that you are not a free counseling service, but I really wanted to get your read on what is going on in my life." Okay, I think this is very interesting because I am a free counseling service. So she's apologizing for using my service, which is funny. I absolutely am. That's why I'm here. Those of us who have been raised this way have a tendency to feel and act like we don't have a right to exist on the planet, like we don't have a right to exist in the way that other people do, and that we can't make an impact on the world. We can have needs. Okay, so I've always felt a lot of pressure to succeed in life as a result of my parents' immense expectations. Okay, but now listen what she says next. "They were very supportive of everything I did, and were not terribly controlling or terribly pushy." Okay. She said immense expectations, that she felt a lot of pressure to succeed in life as a result of her parents' immense expectations. Her words. She chose those words. And then right away turns around and says they were not terribly controlling or pushy. Okay, so what this tells me is that they were probably manipulative, and so where she doesn't have maybe evidence of them doing overtly pushy things, like maybe the tiger mom syndrome, where they just really intensely high expectations. But manipulation, for one thing, manipulation in children is abuse, and if you are letting your expectations be known or you're disapproving of them, and your way of doing that is by withholding affection, withholding attention, sulking, passive-aggressive tactics, as ways of showing your disapproval, that's also abusive. That is abusive. And children need clear, consistent communication. They need you to set the rules and be consistent. They need things to line up and match up, and they need justice. Kids are really naturally attuned to justice. And there'll be a disconnect, and they'll have a hard time with things that just don't seem fair. And they'll even say, that doesn't seem fair. That's one of the things that kids will say. Okay, so she goes on. "I've built a successful business, have achieved some small local success with my art, and have exciting possibilities on the horizon, but I can't ever seem to feel that anything is good enough. I can't feel satisfied or successful no matter how many people praise and admire what I do." This is clearly because she is trying to get her parents' approval. It's her parents' praise that she wants. Kids really need praise from their parents, just like air and food and water. Parents really need to try and look for all kinds of little ways, small things that they can compliment in their kids and praise them for. And that can be really a challenge if you weren't raised that way. It takes a lot to really be thinking like that if you weren't raised that way. But kids really, really need it. And self-absorbed parents don't give it. And so, or parents that, the old-fashioned parents that, that think that would spoil a child to do that, which of course it doesn't. And then she goes on to say, "My parents were never physically abusive, but my mother has always been manipulative, attention-seeking, generally riddled with poor health. My father was basically shut down and distant." And she goes on to basically just sign out and stuff like that, and thank you, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so you can see here how she's just really still, after all these years, trying to not have to say what the truth is, and also having a really hard time with admitting that emotional abuse is really painful and terrible abuse. But the truth of it is that emotional abuse, the subtle misery, the ongoing misery of emotional abuse, actually is much more damaging and much harder to heal from. Countless stories of horrendous abuse, torture, violence, even sexual abuse, all kinds of things that people emerge from and heal from and do quite well. But emotional abuse is a tricky one because it's harder to identify, it's not validated, you know, they don't have the bruises and the marks and all that stuff, so we feel like we shouldn't complain about it, and so we feel guilty for feeling bad, for feeling like we're abused. But it really is very, very damaging to be emotionally abused. And you know, at the hand of one's mother, in particular the mother bond early in life, foundation for emotional health and well-being for a lifetime. And so if you didn't get it, if something interrupted it, and it sounds here like narcissism and self-absorption of some kind is what definitely interrupted it. In your case, you know, I hate to say it, but you know, you're not going to get your needs met here, and so you need to reparent yourself. You need to get your needs met somewhere else, and you need to reparent yourself. And I have videos on how to do that, and you can also check out my website and other resources that I have on reparenting yourself. But one exercise I can give you just to basically start out with is journal. First of all, journaling is really important. You want to basically state what should have happened. State your position as a child. State who you were when the first time you can remember this abuse. State your position then. Say the things that your abuser said so that you can hear how ridiculous they sound. And then say the things that you wish someone would have said, the things that you think someone should have said. And write all this down in your journal and get it outside of yourself. If you're supporting someone who's going through something like this, basically there's three important elements. They need support, they need empathy, and they need the truth. They need the truth. And I would say number three is really the most important, because there's been so much running from the truth for years in these situations that stating things the way that they are, calling things as they are, and getting rid of the cognitive dissonance is really important, and validating what happened, and making sure that the person knows, the victim knows, that it wasn't their fault. They were a child. It wasn't their fault. So that's what I would do, and that's how that looks. That's how a lot of us can end up at, you know, decades later, still not able to fully admit what's happened with emotional abuse and CPTSD, and how we have this subtle gnawing discomfort. We just can't seem to get fully happy and on with our lives. We're stuck. And so I would say she is very stuck, and so this is a way to get unstuck. Anything you guys have to add about CPTSD, being an adult survivor of childhood narcissistic abuse, and Overachiever Syndrome? And I'm going to do a video on People Pleaser Syndrome also in this little series here, so stay tuned for that. Okay, thanks a lot. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.